大家好，我是 Jenny， 欢迎来到沉思者 J。 有一个人，他没有军队，没有武器，甚至没有鞋子，但他打败了大英帝国。这个人的名字叫莫罕达斯卡拉姆昌德甘地，世界尊称他为圣雄甘地，英文叫做 Mohandas Gandhi。Mahatma 是梵文，意思是伟大的灵魂。这个称号是诗人泰戈尔给他的。甘地自己并不喜欢这个称呼，他说他只是一个普通人，但那个年代没有人相信他说的话，因为他做的事根本不像普通人。今天的故事要从一个很小的地方开始说，那是印度西岸的一个小城市，叫做博尔本达。1869年10月2日，甘地就出生在这里。他的家庭是瓦尼亚众姓，属于商人阶层。他的父亲达斯甘地是当地的地方长官，在英国殖民体制下负责管理地方事务。家里信仰印度教，但同时对耆那教的影响非常深。耆那教有一个非常重要的核心教义，叫做不杀生，就是对所有生命的慈悲与不伤害。这个思想在甘地小时候就悄悄种进了他心里。甘地的妈妈普特利拜是一个非常虔诚的女性，她每天都会斋戒，她的生活方式非常节制。甘地后来说过，他一生对于灵性修行的兴趣，很大程度来自于看着妈妈的身影长大。小时候的甘地其实不算聪明的那种孩子，他很腼腆，很怕黑，在学校成绩只算普通。他自己回忆说，他那时候甚至不敢和同学说话，怕被人嘲笑。但他有一个特质从小就非常明显，他极度厌恶不公正，只要看到有人被欺负，他就会坐立难安。这个特质后来改变了历史。1883年，甘地13岁，他的家人帮他安排了婚事，新娘叫卡斯图尔巴，也是13岁，这在当时的印度社会很常见。卡斯图尔巴后来陪伴甘地走过了几十年的风风雨雨，他自己也成为了一个勇敢的独立运动参与者。1944年在狱中去世。1888年，19岁的甘地离开印度，前往英国伦敦念法律。这个决定在家里引起了不小的风波。他所在的众姓有规定，不能漂洋过海，否则会被视为不洁。甘地的族群长老甚至对他宣布绝交，但甘地还是去了。到了伦敦，现实比想象的还要艰难。这个瘦瘦的少年根本不会说英文，他在船上晕船晕得很惨。到了伦敦又冻得发抖。英国的冬天对一个从印度来的人来说真的太冷了，而且他吃素。那个年代的伦敦几乎找不到素食餐厅，他一开始只能吃面包，有时候干脆饿着肚子。但他没有放弃，他开始认真学英文，他努力融入环境，甚至一度尝试变成一个标准的英国绅士。他买了体面的西装，学跳舞，学拉小提琴，学说英国口音的英文。然后他发现这条路不适合他，他放弃了那些外表的包装，开始寻找更深刻的东西。就在这个时候，他加入了伦敦的一个素食者协会，在那里他认识了各种各样的人，思想家、改革者、理想主義者。他开始如饥似渴的阅读，他读了印度教最重要的典籍《保加梵歌》，以英文版本读的。读了以后他大吃一惊，这部他在印度长大却从来没认真读过的书，竟然给了他极大的震撼。他读了基督教的圣经，尤其是登山宝训那个部分打动了他。耶稣说要爱你的敌人，这个教导和他后来的思想有很深的呼应。他读了俄国大文豪托尔斯泰的作品。托尔斯泰晚年有一本重要的著作，名字叫做《天国在你心中》。这本书对甘地的冲击非常大，甘地后来还直接给托尔斯泰写信，两个人真的通了信。托尔斯泰在去世前不久回了甘地的信，给了他很大的鼓励。1891年，甘地拿到律师执照回到印度，他以为可以大展身手，现实却给了他一记大耳光。他第一次出庭就脑袋一片空白，站在法庭上一句话都说不出来，他完全不知道要怎么进行案件，然后他就跑掉了。对， 就这样跑出法庭，还把案件的费用退还给客户。甘地的律师生涯开局相当惨烈，他在印度挣扎了好一段时间，几乎没有像样的案件。就在这个最低潮的时候，一个机会出现了，一家在南非的印度商人公司邀请他去工作，合约是1年，就1年，但命运就是这么奇妙。那1年成了他生命转折的起点。1893年，甘地到了南非的德班，他买了头等车厢的火车票，然后在一个叫做彼得马里茨堡的小站发生了一件事。列车员走过来叫他离开头等车厢，理由只有一个，他的皮肤是棕色的。甘地拒绝了，他说他买了头等票，他有权利坐在这里。列车员去找了更多人来，甘地还是拒绝移动。最后他们把他的行李扔到月台上，强行把他赶下了车。那是冬天的夜晚，高原上的彼得马里茨堡气温极低，甘地一个人坐在候车室里，他的外套还在行李里，行李被扔到外面，他冷得发抖。他在那个候车室里待了整整1夜，思考着一件事，他要怎么做，是买票回家，还是留下来面对这个不公正的世界？那1夜的决定改变了20世纪的历史。甘地决定留下来，他决定不逃，他决定要面对，但不是用暴力面对，是用另一种方式。他后来说，那1夜在彼得马里茨堡车站是他一生中最重要的夜晚。甘地在南非一待就是21年，他在那里创立了自己的哲学。这个哲学有个梵文名字叫做沙提雅格拉哈，翻译过来的意思是抓住真理，或者也可以说是真理的力量。他把这个哲学说得很清楚，就是用灵魂的力量对抗不义，不用暴力，不用仇恨。你可以拒绝服从不义的法律，你可以接受随之而来的惩罚，因为你愿意承受痛苦，才能让世界看见这个不义有多荒谬。他同时强调一件很重要的事，非暴力不等于懦弱，懦弱是逃跑，真正的非暴力需要比打架更大的勇气。你要敢于站在子弹面前，却不举起拳头；你要敢于让别人打你，却不还手，因为你的灵魂比对方的武力更强大。这个哲学在南非开始实践。甘地带领在南非的印度移民，发动了多次非暴力抗争，对抗南非殖民政府对印度人的歧视性法律。他因此多次入狱，在南非的监狱里坐牢，但每一次出狱他都更加坚定。1915年，甘地回到印度的时候，他已经是一个声名远播的人物。泰戈尔亲自到港口迎接他，称他为圣雄。回到印度的甘地做了一个让很多人不理解的决定，他没有立刻投入政治运动。他说他要先花1年的时间走遍印度各地，他要亲眼看见印度真正的样子。他脱下了西装，换上了一块白色的棉布，那块布叫做土地，是最普通的印度农民穿的东西。他把自己装扮成最普通的印度人，然后他用脚走遍乡间，走进农村，坐进农民的家里，听他们说话，了解他们的生活，了解他们承受的苦难。他去到比哈尔省的地方，那里的农民被迫种植靛蓝。靛蓝是一种染料作物，种靛蓝不能种粮食，农民因此又贫穷又挨饿。他帮这些农民记录了实情，最终让殖民政府废除了那个强制种植的制度。他去到古吉拉特省，那里因为旱灾加上瞌睡，农民几乎走投无路。他帮他们争取到了减税。他在每一个地方都让人们看见，有人愿意为他们站出来，而且那个人不需要任何回报。到了1919年，英国殖民政府通过了一个法案，名字叫罗拉特法案。这个法案让殖民当局可以在不经过任何审判的情况下，把任何人关起来，只要他们认为这个人是危险分子，就可以无限期关押。印度全国愤怒了，甘地决定发动全国性的不合作运动。他号召人们罢工，停下一切工作，用沉默和停工来表达抗议。但就在这个时候，发生了一场他一生都无法从心里抹去的悲剧。1919年4月13日， 旁遮普省的阿姆利则城，一场抗议集会在一个叫做扎林瓦拉园的广场举行。那里是一个四面被高墙围起来的庭院，只有几个非常狭窄的出入口。那天聚集了几千人，有些人是来抗议的，有些人只是来庆祝印度新年的，甚至有家长带着孩子来。英国军官雷金纳德戴尔率领士兵赶到，他下令封锁所有出口，然后下令开枪，朝着人群射击，没有任何警告，没有要求人群散去，直接开枪，足足射了10分钟，1650发子弹，打完为止。官方统计死亡人数是379人，但许多历史学家认为实际死亡人数超过1000人，1000多人受伤。许多人为了逃跑跳进广场上唯一的一口井里，那口井后来打捞出120具尸体。这件事震惊了全世界，在英国议会里引起了巨大争议。事件后来被称为阿姆利则惨案。甘地在远处收到消息，他痛哭失声，但随后他做了一件让很多人不理解的事，他宣布暂停整个不合作运动。人们问他，为什么要停？英国人杀了这么多印度人，我们应该要更激烈的反抗才对。甘地说，是他的错，因为就在阿姆利则惨案发生之前的几天，他的运动在某些地方发生了暴力事件，有人趁着示威破坏财物，有人伤害了英国人。甘地说那个暴力是他的失误，他让人民还没有准备好就出来抗争了，他要先让人民学会在灵魂上做好准备，才能继续前进。这个决定让很多激进的民族主义者对他失望，他们认为甘地太软弱了，太妥协了。但甘地的标准始终如一，非暴力是不能妥协的底线，哪怕是为了反抗暴力的暴力，他也不接受。进入1920年代，甘地开始系统性的推动不合作运动，他号召全国印度人抵制英国商品，尤其是英国布料。他要求人们把英国布料拿出来烧掉，他自己更以身作则。他买了一架手纺车，每天花时间亲自纺纱。他要求所有的国大党成员也要学会纺纱。他说这不只是经济行动，这是精神行动。当一个印度人亲手纺出自己穿的布，他就夺回了自己的尊严，他就不再依赖殖民者了。那个手纺车的形象后来成了印度独立运动最有力的视觉象征。后来印度的国旗中间就有一个圆形的纺车图样。1929年的跨年夜，国大党在拉合尔召开大会，通过了一个决议，要求印度完全独立，不是自治，是完全独立。甘地提出了一个让所有人都没想到的计划，他要对抗英国政府最荒谬的一个制度，就是盐税。盐税的历史很长，英国殖民政府规定，印度人不能自己制盐，所有的盐必须向英国政府购买，而且要缴很高的税。对于每天靠微薄收入生活的印度农民来说，盐税是一个非常沉重的负担，因为不管贫富，每个人都要吃盐。甘地宣布他要带人走到海边，从海水里提炼出盐，不缴税的盐，用这个行动打破不公正的法律。英国殖民官员听到这个消息，起初觉得好笑，一个61岁的老人要走到海边捡盐，这有什么了不起？但全世界的记者都嗅到了这件事的分量，他们纷纷赶来跟随甘地。1930年3月12日，甘地从沙巴尔马提修道院出发，带着78个精心挑选的追随者，目的地是388公里外的海岸小镇丹地。他们计划用走的，沿路的农村和城镇一路走过去，每天走大约25公里，有时候走在烈日下，有时候走在尘土飞扬的土路上。他们走过农田，走过小村庄，沿途的村民看到这支队伍，有人放下手边的工作加入，有人在路边双手合十，有人跪下来哭泣。甘地每到一个地方就演讲，他告诉人们，你不需要武器，你只需要勇气和真理。到了后来，这支队伍已经有几万人。1930年4月5日，甘地走进海水里，弯下腰， 从沙滩上拾起一小撮已经蒸发成固体的海盐。就这样，这个动作被全世界的摄影记者拍了下来，照片传遍世界各地。盐的行军点燃了整个印度，各地的人们纷纷走向海边，走向盐场，从不缴税的地方取盐，拒绝服从殖民政府的规定。英国殖民政府慌了，他们开始大规模逮捕人，超过6万名印度人因此入狱，包括甘地本人，也包括尼赫鲁，也包括无数普通的农民和市民。但抗争的火苗根本压不住，你关得了一个人，关不了一个想法。盐的行军让全世界看见了什么是非暴力抵抗，不是演讲稿上的理论，是388公里的脚印。甘地这一生坐牢坐了很多次，在南非的监狱，在印度的监狱，加起来超过2000天在牢里度过。但他每一次走出监狱都比进去前更有力量。他的另一个武器是绝食，他一生中进行了多次绝食抵抗，有时候是为了让英国殖民政府让步，有时候是为了让印度人之间停止相互残杀。他的身体愈来愈虚弱，每次绝食结束后都需要很长的时间恢复，但他的意志力让所有人惊叹。其中有一次绝食让人印象特别深刻，那是为了阻止印度教徒和穆斯林之间的冲突。那个年代两个宗教社群之间的暴力事件非常严重，每次一有冲突就死很多人。甘地宣布绝食，他对两边的人说，如果你们继续打下去，我就继续不吃东西，直到你们停止为止。两边的人都怕了，他们怕的不是政府，怕的是甘地死在这件事上，那个重量没有人能承受。冲突停了，这就是甘地的力量，不是军队，不是枪炮，是灵魂的重量。1942年，第二次世界大战打得如火如荼，甘地发动了印度退出运动，他要求英国立刻离开印度，他向全国发出了一个简短的呼唤，行动，否则就去死。他说这是印度的最后一搏，我们要在这一代人的手里完成独立。英国政府立刻逮捕了甘地，也逮捕了所有重要的国大党领袖，然后对抗议者采取了极其严厉的镇压，超过10万人被捕，数千人在镇压中丧命。甘地在监狱里度过了将近2年，他进狱后不久就大病一场，他的妻子卡斯图尔巴也在同一所监狱里，而且病得更重。1944年2月，卡斯图尔巴在狱中去世，甘地抱着他，他的头靠在他的肩膀上，就这样离开了。他们相伴超过60年，从13岁就结婚的那2个孩子，走过了南非的岁月，走过了印度的岁月，走过了监狱，走过了抗争，最后卡斯图尔巴走在甘地前面。甘地后来说那是他一生中最痛苦的时刻之一。1947年，印度终于独立了，那是他奋斗几十年的梦想终于成真。8月15日，印度在午夜时分正式宣告独立，全国欢腾。但甘地那一天在哪里？他不在德里，不在庆典现场，他在加尔各答，一个人待在一个破旧的穆斯林社区里，为的是祈祷，因为那个地方就在几天前还在发生宗教暴力冲突。喜悦伴随着破碎，印度次大陆在独立的同时被一分为二，印度和巴基斯坦分裂了。这场分裂造成了人类历史上最大规模的强制移民潮之一，超过1000万人流离失所，宗教冲突之中数10万人死亡。甘地心碎了，他说这不是他梦想的独立，他梦想的是一个所有人共同生活的印度，不分教派，不分宗教，不分众姓。他奔走在各个发生冲突的地方，呼吁和平，呼吁停止仇杀。他的声音渐渐沙哑，他的身体愈来愈瘦。1948年1月20日，有人在甘地参加祈祷会时引爆了炸弹，但炸弹没有伤到他。甘地平静地继续祈祷。10天后的1月30日，甘地照例去参加晚祷集会。他走进庭院时，向聚集的人们和十行礼。一个名叫纳图拉姆戈德西的男人走上前来，连开3枪，莫罕达斯甘地倒下了。他死时78岁，口中最后说的2个字是印度语的神啊。 消息传出，整个印度停了，全世界停了。尼赫鲁对全国广播说，我们生命中的光消失了，黑暗处处都是。那个凶手哥德西是一个极端印度教民族主义者，他恨甘地，因为他认为甘地对穆斯林太仁慈了。他认为甘地的非暴力让印度在分裂中蒙受了损失，但历史的评价早已定论，甘地的非暴力精神跨越了宗教，跨越了国界，成为了普世的精神遗产。马丁路德金恩读了他的著作，深受震动。他说没有甘地，他不知道美国的民权运动要怎么走。他把甘地的非暴力哲学直接移植到美国南方的抗争里。曼德拉在罗本岛的监狱里待了27年，他读著甘地的故事。他说甘地的精神让他在最黑暗的日子里撑了下来。走出监狱后的曼德拉带领南非走向了和解，而不是报复。缅甸的昂山素姬，波兰的团结工联，菲律宾的人民力量革命，许多世界各地的非暴力抵抗运动背后都有甘地思想的影子。他说过一句很多人都引用的话，你要成为你希望在这个世界看到的改变。很多人引用这句话，但很少人真的做到。甘地做到了，不是用说的，是用走路走到的，是用饿出来的，是用坐牢换来的，是用一块白色棉布和一架纺车做到的。他用最小的东西打败了最强大的力量。他告诉我们，真正的力量从来不在武器里，在灵魂里。这就是圣雄甘地，向大师致敬。我们下次见咯。Hello everyone, I'm Jenny. Welcome to Thinker J. There was a man. He had no army, no weapons, not even shoes, and yet he brought down the British Empire. His name was Mohandas Gandhi. The world called him Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma is a Sanskrit word. It means great soul. The title was given to him by the poet Rabindranath Tagore. Gandhi himself never liked being called that. He always said he was just an ordinary person. But no one in that era believed him, because what he did was anything but ordinary. Today's story begins in a very small place, a coastal town on the western edge of India called Porbandar. On October 2, 1869, Gandhi was born there into a modest but respected family. His father served as a local administrator under British colonial rule. The family was Hindu, but they were deeply shaped by Jainism as well. Jainism places ahimsa at the very center of its teachings. Ahimsa means non-harming, a total commitment to compassion and non-violence toward every living being. That principle was quietly taking root in young Mohandas long before he understood it. His mother, Putlabai, was an extraordinarily devout woman. She observed regular fasts. She lived with austere simplicity. She rarely raised her voice. Gandhi later said that much of his lifelong fascination with spiritual discipline came from watching his mother move through the world. She was his first and most lasting teacher. As a child, Gandhi was not remarkable in any obvious way. He was deeply shy. He was afraid of the dark, which embarrassed him. At school his grades were ordinary. He later admitted that he was too frightened to speak to his classmates for fear of being laughed at. He would rush home from school every day, avoiding conversation with anyone. But even then, one quality burned in him with unusual intensity. He could not tolerate injustice. Not in the smallest form. When he saw someone being treated unfairly, something inside him could not stay quiet. That quality would one day move mountains. In 1883, when Gandhi was 13 years old, his family arranged his marriage. The bride was a girl named Kasturba, also 13. Child marriage was common in their community and completely unremarkable at the time. What was remarkable was what happened over the next 6 decades. Kasturba became far more than a wife. She became a partner in every struggle. She marched, she was arrested, she served prison sentences. She stood beside Gandhi through everything. She died in prison in 1944, held in his arms. In 1888, at the age of 19, Gandhi left India for London to study law. The decision caused significant trouble at home. His caste community strictly forbade crossing the sea. It was considered a form of ritual defilement. The elders of his community formally declared him an outcast. His mother was heartbroken. But Gandhi went anyway. London was far harder than he had prepared for. He could barely speak English. He got terribly seasick on the crossing. When he arrived in London, the English winter hit him like a wall. He had never felt cold like that. And as a vegetarian, he faced near starvation. Vegetarian restaurants were almost non-existent in London at that time. He survived mainly on bread. Sometimes he simply went without eating. But he did not give up. He was too stubborn to give up. He threw himself into learning English. He learned how to move through this foreign world. He even tried for a period to become a perfect English gentleman. He bought a good suit and new boots. He took dancing lessons. He attempted the violin. He practiced speaking with a crisp British accent. Then he stopped. He looked at himself in the mirror and understood. This was not him. He could not find himself inside this performance. He needed to look inward instead of outward. Around this time he joined a vegetarian society in London. There he met people he had never encountered before. Thinkers, activists, spiritual seekers, writers. People who believed the world could be different. He began reading with a hunger he had never felt before. He read the Bhagavad Gita for the first time, in English translation. He had grown up surrounded by Hinduism but had never actually read its central scripture. The text shook him. The Gita spoke of duty without attachment to results. Of action without ego. Of a soul that cannot be destroyed. These ideas planted themselves in him and never left. He read the Christian Bible. The Sermon on the Mount affected him deeply. The instruction to love your enemies. To turn the other cheek. To resist evil through goodness rather than force. He read those words and felt they pointed toward something real. He read the later writings of Leo Tolstoy. Tolstoy in his final decades had written a work called The Kingdom of God is Within You. It argued that true Christianity meant absolute nonviolence. That the state and the church had corrupted Jesus' original teaching of love and peace. That book struck Gandhi like lightning. Years later, Gandhi wrote directly to Tolstoy. They actually exchanged letters. Tolstoy wrote back not long before his death at the age of 82. His words were full of warmth and recognition. Gandhi kept that letter for the rest of his life. In 1891, Gandhi earned his law degree and sailed back to India. He arrived full of hope. He expected to build a respectable career. He had studied hard. He had survived London. He was ready. He was not ready. On his first day in court, his mind went completely blank. He stood before a judge and could not form a sentence. He opened his mouth and nothing came out. He turned around, walked out of the courtroom, quietly gave his client a full refund, and went home. Gandhi's legal career in India was a humiliation. He could not find clients. He did not know how to conduct a case. He spent months in uncertainty and embarrassment. He wrote later that this period was one of the lowest of his life. He felt himself to be a failure in every direction. Then a letter arrived. An Indian Muslim trading firm based in South Africa needed a lawyer for a business dispute. The work would take about a year. The pay was modest. Gandhi said yes. He needed to escape his own failures. He needed something to do. That modest letter of invitation changed the course of the 20th century. In 1893, Gandhi sailed to South Africa and arrived in the city of Durban. He dressed well. He bought a first-class train ticket to travel to the city of Pretoria for his case. He settled into his seat in the first-class carriage. The train pulled out of Durban station. At a small station called Pietermaritzburg, a railway official appeared at the door of his carriage. He told Gandhi to move to the luggage van at the back of the train. Gandhi asked why. The man explained that first-class carriages were for white passengers only. Gandhi said he had purchased a first-class ticket. He said he had every right to remain where he was. The official went to get help. More railway staff came. A police constable arrived. Gandhi still refused to move. They picked up his luggage. They threw it onto the platform. They threw Gandhi off the train after it. The train pulled away into the night. It was winter in Pietermaritzburg. The altitude there is over 600 meters. The night air was sharp and cold. Gandhi sat in the small waiting room at the station. His coat was in his luggage outside on the platform. He was cold. He was shaking. He was humiliated. He sat there alone through the entire night. And he thought. He thought about what had just happened to him. He thought about the choice in front of him. He could buy a ticket on the next train back to Durban. Book a ship back to India. Go home to his failures and forget about all of this. Or he could stay. He could face whatever this place was. He could look directly at this system of injustice and refuse to look away. He chose to stay. He did not know yet what that would look like. He did not know what tools he had. He only knew he would not run. Gandhi later described that night at Pietermaritzburg as the most formative experience of his life. The train that threw him off set him on the path that led to everything else. Gandhi stayed in South Africa for 21 years. What he built there was not a political movement in the conventional sense. It was a new philosophy. He called it satyagraha. Satya means truth. Graha means to seize or to hold firmly. Together, holding firmly to truth. Or, as he sometimes translated it, the force of truth. Or, soul force. He explained what it meant in very practical terms. When you face an unjust law, you do not obey it. When they arrest you for disobeying it, you go to prison willingly. You do not fight. You do not harm anyone. You accept your punishment without bitterness. Because your willingness to suffer is the proof that the law is wrong. Your suffering speaks louder than any argument. It forces the oppressor to see what they are doing. It holds up a mirror to their injustice. He was emphatic about one thing that people often misunderstood. Nonviolence is not the same as passivity. Nonviolence is not weakness. A frightened person who runs from a fight is not practicing nonviolence. They are just afraid. True nonviolence requires greater courage than violence does. It means standing in front of a rifle without raising your hand. It means letting yourself be beaten without striking back. That kind of courage does not come from nowhere. It has to be cultivated deliberately, like a muscle. Gandhi tested this philosophy in South Africa through a series of campaigns against laws that treated the Indian community as less than human. He organized strikes. He led marches. He submitted petitions. He was arrested multiple times. He served jail time in South Africa. Each time he went in, he came out with more resolve. By the time he returned to India in 1915, he was not the nervous young lawyer who had left. He was someone else entirely. Tagore came to the docks to greet him, and gave him the name the world would use forever, Mahatma. Gandhi arrived in India to enormous expectations. Everyone wanted him to immediately lead a great national movement. He refused. He said he needed to spend a year traveling first. He needed to understand what India actually was. Not the India of cities and newspapers. The India of villages and farms. He took off his suit. He put on a simple white dhoti, the garment of ordinary farmers. He chose to look like one of them. And then he walked. He walked through villages in Bihar where farmers were being forced under colonial law to grow indigo instead of food. Indigo was a cash crop that served British commercial interests. The farmers grew it under contracts they had not chosen and could not escape. Their fields produced dye while their families went hungry. Gandhi documented what he found there. He collected testimony from hundreds of farmers. He presented the evidence in a way that could not be dismissed. Eventually the system of forced indigo cultivation was abolished. He went to Gujarat where farmers were being crushed by a combination of drought and inflexible colonial taxation. The rains had failed. The fields had produced nothing. But the tax collectors still came. Gandhi helped organize resistance. He helped negotiate a suspension of tax collection. He helped give people back a measure of dignity. He was in village after village showing people one thing. Someone was willing to stand up for them. And that someone wanted nothing from them in return. In 1919, the British colonial government passed the Rowlatt Act. The act allowed colonial authorities to arrest and imprison anyone they classified as a seditious threat. No trial. No charge. No time limit. Just prison, for as long as the authorities decided. India was furious. Gandhi called for a national protest day. He asked everyone to fast and stop work. To demonstrate through silence and stillness that the people would not accept this law. What happened next was a catastrophe that would shadow Gandhi for the rest of his life. On April 13, 1919, in the city of Amritsar in Punjab, thousands of people gathered in a public garden called Jallianwala Bagh. It was a large enclosed space surrounded by walls on all sides. The few exits were narrow. Inside were men, women, and children. Some had come to protest the new law. Many had come simply for the Baisakhi harvest festival celebration. Some parents had brought their young children for the holiday gathering. A British general named Reginald Dyer arrived with armed soldiers. He positioned his men to block the exits. He gave no warning. He issued no order to disperse. He simply gave the command to open fire. Soldiers fired into the crowd for approximately 10 minutes. They fired until they ran low on ammunition. Official British records acknowledged 379 deaths. Indian witnesses and later historians estimated the true death toll at well over 1,000. More than 1,000 more were wounded. Many people, trying to escape the gunfire, jumped into the single well inside the garden. When it was searched afterward, 120 bodies were recovered from the well. The Amritsar massacre, as it became known, shocked the world. Even in Britain, many people were horrified. It triggered a major parliamentary debate. A committee of inquiry was established. General Dyer was eventually censured, though he was never prosecuted. Gandhi received word of the massacre from a distance. He was devastated. He wept. And then he made a decision that many of his followers found incomprehensible. He suspended the non-cooperation movement entirely. His followers protested. They argued that the British had just killed hundreds of unarmed Indians. This was not the moment to pull back. This was the moment to escalate. Gandhi said no. He said that before the massacre, his own movement had failed in some places. In certain cities, protest marchers had turned violent. Property had been destroyed. People had been harmed. Gandhi said that was his failure as a leader. He had sent people out to fight before they understood what non-violence truly demanded of them. He had to go back to the beginning. He had to rebuild the foundation. This decision cost him some followers. There were nationalists who concluded that Gandhi was too cautious, too principled for the moment, too unwilling to match British violence with Indian resistance. Gandhi never moved. He said there was only one line he would never cross: violence. Even in response to murder. Even in response to massacre. His weapon was not fire. It was truth. And truth could only be carried with clean hands. Through the 1920s, Gandhi developed the non-cooperation movement into a mass force that could not be ignored. He called for a complete boycott of British-made goods, especially cloth. He asked Indians to go through their wardrobes, pull out everything made in British mills, and burn it. Then he showed them what to do instead. He sat down at a charkha, a simple hand-powered spinning wheel. He spent time every day spinning raw cotton into yarn. He asked all members of the Indian National Congress to do the same. He made spinning a requirement for Congress membership. This was not just economics. He was very clear about that. It was a spiritual practice. When an Indian person spun the thread that clothed their own body, they reclaimed something colonial rule had taken from them. They reclaimed their self-sufficiency. They reclaimed their dignity. They declared themselves free from dependence on the empire. The image became iconic. Gandhi sitting cross-legged at a spinning wheel, working the thread. It appeared in photographs all over the world. When India designed its national flag after independence, a spinning wheel was placed at its center. The symbol of a man who spun his own cloth became the symbol of a nation that spun its own destiny. In late 1929, the Indian National Congress passed a resolution that crossed a new threshold. They did not ask for dominion status within the British Empire. They demanded Purna Swaraj, complete self-rule, full independence, total and unconditional. Gandhi then announced a plan that left everyone, British and Indian alike, uncertain what to make of it. He said he was going to the sea to collect salt. Salt. Not weapons. Not declarations. Not armies. Salt. The British colonial salt laws were a perfect example of colonial logic at its most insulting. Indians were forbidden by law from collecting or producing their own salt. All salt had to be purchased from the colonial government at a price that included a significant tax. Salt was not a luxury. It was not a choice. Every person in India needed salt. The farmer in the field needed it. The infant being weaned needed it. The laborer under the sun needed it. And every one of them was taxed on something they could not live without. Gandhi announced he would walk from his ashram to the coast. He would walk to the sea. He would bend down. And he would pick up salt. Free salt. Untaxed salt. And by doing so he would break the law. The British colonial administration reacted with something close to amusement. An elderly man in a white cloth was going to walk to the beach and pick up some salt? What sort of threat was that? The press saw it differently. Journalists from across the world arrived to witness what was happening. They understood the symbolic weight of it intuitively. On March 12, 1930, Gandhi set out from Sabarmati Ashram with 78 chosen companions. Their destination was the coastal village of Dandi. The distance was 388 kilometers. They would walk every step. Each day they covered about 25 kilometers. Sometimes through open farmland under a fierce sun. Sometimes along dusty unpaved roads with no shade. They walked through village after village. At every stop, something happened. Farmers came out from their fields. Shopkeepers stepped away from their stalls. Women came out of their homes. Some joined the march. Some simply stood and watched, their hands pressed together, tears on their faces. Some knelt. Gandhi spoke at every village. He spoke simply. He told people they did not need weapons. They needed truth. And they needed courage. By the time the march neared the sea, the small group of 78 had grown into a procession of tens of thousands. On April 5, 1930, Gandhi waded into the shallow water at the edge of the sea near Dandi. He reached down. He picked up a small lump of dried salt from the ground. It was worth almost nothing. It weighed almost nothing. But the photographs of that moment traveled around the world within days. India responded as if a match had been struck. All across the country, people walked to the coast. They walked to salt flats. They scraped up salt with their hands and their tools. They violated the salt laws openly. They refused to pay the tax. The British administration had no good response. Arresting tens of thousands of ordinary people for picking up salt from their own coastline exposed the colonial system to the world for what it was. But they arrested people anyway. More than 60,000 people were imprisoned. Gandhi was arrested. Nehru was arrested. Countless farmers and workers and mothers were arrested. And the movement kept growing. You can lock a person away. You cannot lock away an idea whose time has come. The Salt March became one of the most celebrated acts of civil disobedience in human history. Not because of its elegance, but because of its simplicity. A man walked to the water. He bent down. He picked up a handful of earth. And in doing so, he defied an empire. Gandhi spent more than 2,000 days in prison across his lifetime. He was jailed in South Africa. He was jailed in India. Each time, he emerged with more clarity and more purpose. Prison did not break him. Prison refined him. His other instrument was the hunger strike. Across his life he fasted many times and for many different reasons. Sometimes he fasted to pressure the British government into changing a policy. Sometimes he fasted to force a negotiation. Sometimes he fasted to stop Indians from killing each other. Each fast weakened his body further. He was never a large man. Each fast left him thinner. Each recovery took longer. But his resolve never wavered. One fast above all others showed the nature of his power. It came during one of the worst periods of communal violence between Hindus and Muslims. The killings were happening all across northern India. Neighborhoods were burning. Thousands were dying in riots. Gandhi announced he would fast. He said simply, "If you keep killing each other, I will keep not eating." He did not say when he would stop. He did not offer conditions. Both communities were frightened. Not of the British. Not of the police. They were frightened of Gandhi dying with their violence on his conscience. The killings stopped in city after city. He had done what armies could not do. He had done it by refusing to eat. That is what it means to say Gandhi fought with his soul. It is not a metaphor. It is a description of a specific and very unusual kind of power. In 1942, with the world at war and Britain stretched across every front, Gandhi decided the moment had come. He launched the Quit India movement. He demanded that Britain leave India immediately. He addressed the nation with 4 words. Do or die. He told the Indian people, "We must win freedom in this generation or perish trying." The British government moved with unusual speed. Within hours of Gandhi's announcement, they arrested him. They arrested every major Congress leader they could reach. And then they cracked down on protesters with severe force. More than 100,000 people were jailed. Thousands were killed. Gandhi spent nearly 2 years in prison during this period. He entered the detention facility at Pune already in declining health. Shortly after arriving, he became seriously ill. His wife Kasturba was imprisoned in the same compound. She was even sicker than he was. In February 1944, Kasturba died. She died in Gandhi's arms. Her head rested on his shoulder as her breathing stopped. They had first been married when both were 13 years old. They had walked through South Africa together. They had gone to prison together. They had made decisions together that shaped the history of a continent. More than 60 years. In the end, she left first. Gandhi later wrote that those moments were among the most painful of his entire life. He said he felt himself alone in a way he had not felt before. In 1947, India gained independence. The dream that had shaped his entire adult life was finally real. On August 15, India became a free and sovereign nation. The country exploded with joy. Gandhi was not at the celebrations. He was not in Delhi. He was not in the crowd. He was in Calcutta, sitting alone in a rundown Muslim neighborhood, fasting and praying. Because that neighborhood had been racked by communal massacres just days before. Independence came wrapped in catastrophe. The subcontinent was partitioned. India and Pakistan were created as separate states. The line drawn between them forced more than 10 million people from their homes. Hindus fled from Pakistan into India. Muslims fled from India into Pakistan. And in both directions, they were slaughtered. Trains arrived at their destinations full of the dead. Villages were burned. Women were attacked. Hundreds of thousands of people died in the violence surrounding the partition. Gandhi was heartbroken. He said this was not the independence he had fought for. He had imagined an India where everyone lived together, where religion was no barrier between neighbors, where no community had to fear any other. He traveled to every place where violence was spreading. He walked into the middle of riots. He appealed to mobs to stop. He announced fasts. He did not stop moving until his body could barely carry him. On January 20, 1948, someone detonated a bomb near Gandhi during an evening prayer meeting. The explosion went off close to him. He was not hurt. Gandhi finished his prayers. 10 days later, on January 30, Gandhi walked as usual toward the garden where the evening prayer gathering was held. He moved slowly. He was frail. He pressed his hands together in greeting to the crowd assembled there. A man named Nathuram Godse stepped forward through the crowd. He bowed to Gandhi. Then he drew a pistol and fired 3 shots. Mohandas Gandhi fell. He was 78 years old. He managed 2 syllables before he died. Hey Ram. Oh God. News reached the world within hours. Nehru went on the radio. He said that the light had gone out of India. He said there was darkness everywhere. He said he did not know what to tell the people of this country. Godse was a Hindu nationalist extremist. He had decided that Gandhi was a traitor to Hinduism for his insistence on protecting Muslims. He believed that Gandhi's nonviolence had cost India too much in the partition. He had planned the assassination for weeks. What Godse could not kill was what Gandhi had built. His ideas outlasted him. His example outlasted him. Martin Luther King Jr. was a young Baptist minister in the American South when he first read Gandhi seriously. He later said that reading Gandhi gave him the philosophical foundations he needed. He could see how to apply the same principles to the struggle against racial segregation. He took satyagraha to Montgomery and to Birmingham and to Washington. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years imprisoned on Robben Island. He read about Gandhi there. He thought about Gandhi there. When he walked out of prison in 1990, he chose reconciliation over revenge. He chose to build rather than to punish. That choice has Gandhi's fingerprints all over it. From Myanmar to Poland to the Philippines, from the American Civil Rights Movement to the anti-apartheid movement to the pro-democracy movements of the late 20th century, Gandhi's method has been picked up again and again by people who had no armies, no weapons, and no conventional power. Each of them found in his example a proof that this approach could work. That it had worked. That a single unarmed human being, holding to truth with enough discipline, could change the direction of history. What made Gandhi's philosophy so transferable was that it was not rooted in any particular religion or culture. He drew from Hinduism, from Jainism, from Christianity, from Tolstoy. He synthesized something that did not belong exclusively to any tradition. He called it truth force, soul force, and he insisted it was available to anyone willing to pay the price of discipline. The price was real. Non-violence as Gandhi practiced it was not comfortable. It was not safe. It was not reassuring. It meant choosing suffering. It meant walking into situations where you could be beaten and choosing not to run. It meant going to prison when you had done nothing wrong and refusing to feel defeated by it. It meant fasting while the people around you begged you to eat. It meant watching partition tear apart the country you had spent your life trying to liberate. It meant dying without seeing everything you had worked for. Gandhi never promised it would be easy. He never promised it would be clean. He promised only that it was more powerful than the alternative. And he spent his life proving it. He was not a perfect man. His own children felt neglected by a father who belonged to the nation. His views on race evolved slowly, and his early writings in South Africa contained ideas he would later repudiate. His views on women were contradictory. His methods sometimes frustrated even his closest allies, who wanted faster progress and less restraint. Nehru himself, who loved Gandhi deeply, sometimes disagreed with him sharply. But Gandhi never claimed to be perfect. He called himself an experimenter in truth. He said his life was itself the experiment. He believed that a person had to hold themselves accountable first, before asking anything of anyone else. That is why every time his movement produced violence, he stopped it. Not to protect the movement. To protect himself from the corruption of believing the ends justified the means. He understood that a person who uses violence to fight for peace has already lost something essential. Something that cannot be won back. He said once that he had learned from the Bhagavad Gita that a person must act without attachment to the result. You do what is right because it is right. Not because it will necessarily succeed. Not because it will be recognized. Not because history will remember it kindly. You do it because truth demands it of you. That is an extraordinarily difficult standard. Almost no one lives up to it. Gandhi did not always live up to it perfectly either. But he held it before himself every day. And on the days that mattered most, it held him upright. He said something that has been repeated so many times it risks losing its force. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Many people say those words. They put them on posters. They use them in speeches. Almost no one means them the way Gandhi meant them. He meant them completely. He meant them in every decision he made across 50 years of public life. He meant them when he gave away his suit and put on a farmer's cloth. He meant them when he sat at the spinning wheel every morning without exception. He meant them when he picked up a handful of salt from the sea. He meant them when he walked alone into neighborhoods where people were killing each other. He meant them when he refused to eat until the killing stopped. He meant them when he was thrown in prison and chose to stay calm. He meant them when he wept for his dead wife and then got up and kept working. He used the smallest things. A handful of salt. A piece of white cloth. A spinning wheel. His own body, growing thinner with each fast, each hunger strike, each year behind bars. Against the largest power of his age. And in the end, he won. Not perfectly. Not without immense heartbreak. Not without the grief of a partition that shattered millions of lives. Not without watching his dream of a unified India come apart in blood and fire. But he won the essential thing. He showed the world that truth, carried with enough courage and enough patience, is a force that empires cannot permanently contain. He showed us that power is not only found in armies. It is found in the willingness to suffer for what you know to be right. It is found in the refusal to become the thing you are fighting against. It is found in the spinning wheel turning quietly in the pre-dawn hours. In the old man bending toward the sea. In the 2 syllables spoken at the moment of death. Hey Ram. That was Mahatma Gandhi. Tribute to the masters. See you next time.